Okay, so for this project, we're going to be doing typography, which is using letters into your art. So what we're doing is drawing an image. It can be an animal, food. Those are kind of the examples that I had given you. It could be an object. You're going to draw the outline of that object. So I'm going to do a butterfly. I have the outline of a butterfly here. And then I'm going to fill in this outline with the letters that create the word butterfly. So I'm just going to fill in the wings. I'm not going to fill in the body of the butterfly. I'm going to leave that just as drawing, but I'm going to fill in the wings to spell out the word butterfly. So using that outline as your guide to be the edges of your letters. Okay. And letters might overlap, they might not. That just depends on your drawing itself. I want you to use bubble letters or block letters, one or the other. So my B, my U, it all touches the edge of my wings here, right? I'm not going outside of my wings. I'm letting the wings guide the shape of my letters. So yes, my letters are kind of weird, they're wonky. That is okay. They can be at different angles. So like my T is at a totally different angle compared to that T. And then I'm going to come down here to finish out my word. I have my E. Again, I'm touching the areas of my wings, top to bottom. So now I just have the word fly to add in here. Keeping with those bubble letters or those block letters, whichever one you choose. And you want to draw lightly in case you need to erase any of this as you go. And then I need to add in my Y. And I'm going to, let's see, how do I want to do the bottom of my Y? I think I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to have it curl up and come down to form this part of my wing. Okay, so it gets like a little curlicue in there. Okay, so now once you have the letters in, what you're going to do is erase the outline. So I'm going to come through my wings and erase that outline, any part that is not touching the letter or is not the edge of one of my letters. So this is called an implied line. You get the idea of a line being here even though there's not actually one present. Your eye creates that connection and finishes out that picture for you. It is what's happening there. Okay. So now you still get the idea that there are wings. And I'm going to go over the body of my butterfly again, adding that in here. It's little antennas. And then once you have that complete, your next step would be to start coloring. And we're going to color with colored pencil. And you have two color scheme options that you can choose from. Okay, so your color scheme options that you can choose from. Let me get my color wheel in here so you can see it. There we go. So we can do a split complementary color scheme, which involves 3 colors. So split complementary, like complementary normally is 2 colors, like red and green. They're opposites of each other on the color wheel. So split complementary means we're going to split one of those 2 colors instead. So maybe I want to use red really bad. So instead of using green, I would use yellow green and blue green. So it'd be yellow green, blue green, and red. Or I could go the other direction. I could use green, red orange, red violet. Okay, so that could be my 3 colors right there, that little triangle. It kind of creates a Y on the color wheel, right? So instead of being a straight line going across, it comes up and then it splits off. And it could be any direction of the color wheel you want it to. So yellow's opposite is purple. But if I wanted to use yellow, instead of using purple, I would use red violet. I guess that's my yellow. Yellow, purple. I would use red violet and blue violet. So red violet, blue violet, yellow. That would be my split complementary. Or I could do purple with yellow, orange, yellow, green. If I wanted to do the blue and orange section, so here's my blue, that would be my orange, that's complementary. Splitting that up, I could do blue, yellow, orange, red, orange, or I could do orange with blue, green, blue, violet. Okay, so you can do a split complementary, that would be one color scheme option. And again, you have multiple options, obviously, within that option. Or you could do a triadic, which is 3 colors that make a triangle. So here you have 2 different options because a triadic has to be an equilateral triangle. So you could either do the 3 primary colors together, red, yellow, blue, or you could do the 3 secondary colors together, have orange, purple, green. So those are your color scheme options, split complementary or a triadic. So you either have that Y shape, and you can turn that Y any way you want to around the color wheel, or you have an equilateral triangle, meaning that there's exactly those 3 colors in between each one that you chose. So in between yellow and red, there's 3 colors. In between yellow and blue, there's 3 colors. In between blue and purple, there are 3 colors. Okay, or blue and red, there's 3 colors. There we go. All right, so those are your color scheme options. We're coloring with color pencil. I'm going to pick out my colors I'm going to use, and I'm going to show you craftsmanship with color pencil, which is also its own separate video in the announcement section if you want to look at that there. So I'm choosing to do a split complementary. So I'm going to do yellow. I have 2 different yellow colored pencils. Okay, you're welcome to use as many colors as you have, as long as it doesn't change into a different color. So as many values of that color that you have. These are 2 different values of yellow. Neither of them is a yellow orange or a yellow green. They're both strictly yellow, just different values. Okay. Then I have my blue violet right here. I only have 1, so that's all I'm going to use for my blue violet. I'm not going to grab a blue. I'm not going to grab a violet. Now, if you don't have color pencils and those tertiary colors, yes, you can use your blue and your violet to make a blue violet. Okay, but you can't use them separately. And then I have 2 different red violets. So these are my 2 red violets that I'm going to be using. And then as well as your colors, you can use any neutrals. So I'm going to use a white, so I could lighten any of these colors if I want to lighten them. I'm going to use a black, so I could darken any of these colors if I want to darken them. I could mix these together to make a gray if I want to dull any of these down and if I don't want them to be so bright. I'm also going to use a gold, and I'm also going to use a silver. So these are also neutral colors. If you have those, you're welcome to use those as well anytime. You're always welcome to add neutrals to any color scheme, I'm going to go ahead and get started coloring here. Got to figure out what colors I want where. Before I start coloring, I do want you to add a pattern onto a few letters. It doesn't have to be every single one. It can if you want to add a pattern onto each letter. You could have a few blank letters if you want, but I do want to add in a pattern. So I'm going to do a little squiggly line, and I'm just going to let my squiggly line flow from one letter over to the next. Your patterns don't have to connect across letters like this if you don't want them to. You can definitely make an individual pattern for each letter. Okay. So my little wavy lines are definitely getting different as I go across my letters. That is okay. I'm down here all the way to the end of my Y. Okay, so that gives me a pattern on my lower letters. So far my top letters are solid, but I do want to add something into them as well. I'm thinking on my top letters that I want to just do one squiggly line along the top of them. Okay. And then I want the bottom half of that to be solid. That's going to be my pattern right there. So now I can start coloring, and I know I definitely want to use my purples in my wings. So when we start to color, what I want you to do, so I'm going to pick up one of my red violets here, and I want you to color in small little circular patterns. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in here for you. So if you get a little closer, let's get that in focus. Not wanting to focus. There we go. Okay, so I've been working a little bit on coloring while I was getting some room on my phone to continue making more video here for you. So like I said, I want you to color in that circular direction. One thing I don't want to see is, like, I added this in here, I don't want to see what direction you're coloring. Okay, I want it to look smooth. And eventually, as you keep going back over a certain area, add more and more and more pressure so we can get in between those bumps, the little teeth of the paper, and it's completely covered. So you can see, like in here, that white paper is still showing through, but down here it's not. That's what I want to see. Now, if you want a lighter value, instead of just using less pressure, you can use less pressure to create that lighter value. But another way to do that is to add white, which is what I want you to do. Because again, I don't want to see the white paper showing through. I want it to be smooth. So if that white paper is showing through, but you want a lighter value, add some white on top and use a lot of pressure here and just kind of smooth that around, get into those little dips in the paper, those little bumps and teeth of the paper, and that's going to smooth that out for you. Okay, and blend that. Now, I suggested getting Prismacolors. That's going to work really well because it's a super soft material. If you have Crayola, it's going to be a little harder. It's still doable, but it's going to be a little harder just because of the brand. You can also darken an area. So say like down here, I want to darken it. I can come in with black and blend a little bit of black on top of that. Again, I'm still going in that circular direction, and I'm starting with a very little pressure because black is a really strong color, okay? So I'm just doing a little bit at a time right there. Got a few little dirty spots there on my paper, that's okay. So I do want to see you blend colors. I want to see shades. We worked on those in the first couple weeks of class. I want to see tints. We worked on those. You can also make dull values by adding some black into a spot and adding white into a spot. So that way you get a gray. You're blending that color in with a gray. Now, if you have a gray color pencil, you could use that gray instead of having to make gray. I don't have a gray color pencil, so I have to use my white and my black to make that. And then even though I made that little gray area, I might come back in again with my red violet and go on top of that again if I got it too gray, right? So I can go back and forth between my color pencils to get the right value that I want. And you're going to do that for the whole image. I want you to keep the background area nice and white and clean as much as possible. Okay, I'm now going to make a neutral color here for the body of my butterfly.
I put yellow down as my base, but I'm going to blend in one of my red violets into it. So this is another thing I want to see in your drawings, right? I told you I wanted to see shades, tints. I want to see an area that's got tones, which is where you blend your color with gray. And then I want to see an area that's neutral, where you blend your colors together into each other. So that all depends on what color scheme you chose. Like if you chose a triadic color scheme and are using red, blue, and yellow, then if you blend two of your colors together, you're going to end up making a secondary color on your piece. If you choose the secondary triadic color scheme, you'll make a neutral. If you choose any split complementary color scheme, you'll most likely make a neutral unless you did like I did the red violet and the blue violet together, then they would just look more violet than anything else, right? The red and the blue would kind of start to cancel each other out, and it would blend to make an even violet. So I'm still coloring in those little circular patterns. Some areas they're getting a little bit more oval, and I'm going back and forth over those areas that I've already done. So that white paper is still showing through right here. It's not super solid yet, but it will. I'm going to keep layering that up and creating that neutral value here. Okay, so we just have one more step, and that is to outline. I'm going to get a black fine point Sharpie or pen, and I'm just going to outline all of my lettering and the body of my butterfly. And I've kept my background nice, clean, and white, and that we will be done. Okay, so this is what a finished piece would look like. Of course, you guys aren't doing a butterfly. I want you to do something different than what I did, and you don't have to choose the same color scheme as me. You can choose a different color scheme. If you would like this one, you are welcome to do that also. Don't forget that I want to see a pattern on at least half of your letters. Some can be solid and plain, but I'd like to see probably half of your letters has some sort of pattern on them. And it could be a different pattern on them too. It doesn't have to be the same. You can have part of your piece without being made from letters if it just doesn't make sense that way. And if you are having a hard time thinking about that and you want to ask me, just ask me. But that is what a finished piece should look like.